Greetings, Lions. Welcome to the video on New South agriculture. Even with all the industry mentioned in the New South industry video, the typical Southerner, white or black, was most likely to be facing the western end of an eastbound mule for his money. Agriculture still remained supreme in the South as the career of choice. To replace the slaves, plantation owners hired workers, who were either former slaves themselves or poor whites that got in the fields in groups. This method did not work as plantation owners had trouble paying their employees. Remember, these planters were broke. Also, the group method of work reminded African Americans of slavery, which they just left. So as you might expect, farmers during this period, both white and black, would rather be independent and manage their own plot of land. They strove to be what we call self-sufficient. For both whites and blacks, farmers had this dream to own the land they farmed. And to put this another way, quite simply, this is what is called the American dream. To accommodate this idea and also to get workers for their farms, plantation owners then developed new methods of farming. First, they invented sharecropping. The plantation owners broke up their estates into individual units, and they assigned a family to each unit. All that a family had to provide on the unit they were on was their labor. The landowner provided the house, the tools, the seeds, and whatever else the family needed. And then in the fall, at harvest time, the crop was divided evenly between the landowner and the sharecropper. And since the landowners provided everything, sharecroppers had no choice in which crop to grow. So even though this might sound in a lot of ways like modified slavery, sharecroppers could at least choose where, and when they wanted to work. They could be their own person and they could have hope for the future, although they were getting the shorter end of the dividend. As in most sharecropping cases, plantation owner would suddenly get 70% of the proceeds from the crop, and the sharecropper gets somewhere around 30%. Thus, at the bottom you have the sharecropping. The second method, which is a little bit more independent and better for the farmer, was tenant farming. Now, tenant farming, it differed from sharecroppers in that tenant farmers received a larger share of the crop than the landowner. And this is because the tenant farmer rented the land. The tenant farmer also, from the plantation owner, the tenant farmer also provided the tools and the animals needed to raise the crop. Also, the tenant farmer had more of a choice of which crop to grow, but they still had to produce a cash crop. Put bluntly, at harvest time, the tenant farmer still needed to show a profit. But even though the tenant farmer did get a greater share of the crop proceeds. As you might expect, using sharecropping or tenant farming as methods of management to farm, they are extremely inefficient, as both sharecroppers and tenant farmers lack the incentive to care for the land, and the owner was unable to supervise the work. One way I like to describe this is, think of someone who's renting an apartment. Do they really care about the condition of the apartment? They care about the condition of how they leave it, because after all, they don't own it. And also keep in mind, in the case of the example of the apartment, the landowner, the landlord, the company that owns the apartment is not always there to supervise the facilities. Although I do want to close with one great example. One great example of this is also a success story. Daniel Trotter, an African American farmer, he spent 4 years as a sharecropper in Louisiana, and he saved enough money to become a tenant farmer to rent the land instead of just sitting on it. His wife, during his tenant farming days, also earned money by sewing for other people and raising chickens. The Trotters also raised a few pigs, and Daniel went out and made what he called cash money doing odd jobs for people. It took 14 years of tenant farming, but after 14 years, the Trotters had saved enough money to buy a farm. Thus, it became possible to raise enough money to own the land you farmed, to complete the American dream. Well, the success story of the Trotters is a rarity. As we'll see here in a moment, in the crop lean system, most farmers were not successful at achieving the American dream. Well, thank you for watching this video on New South agriculture, and as always, may the force be with you.